feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming in Monday morning, it's July 28th. Thanks for being a little patient with the schedule this time of year. It was nice to take a week off of doing shows following Summer League. And I wanted to, say off the top here that's going to kind of be the rhythm of episodes for the rest of this summer, August into the beginning of September. It's going to be spotty, but it's my plan to do it this way rather than, maybe some of you remember last summer we took all of August off. We're not going to do that. Spotty episodes. I do think taking little pauses helps me. Taking a pause last week kind of helped me get more excited or maybe more into doing a pod today. Spent a lot of time road tripping last week and was listening to a lot of NBA pods, and it got me back thinking about the league as a whole, thinking about next year a little bit, thinking about the Wolves in the context of the league a little bit. I'm listening to, like Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons or whatever, ranked teams in the West, ranked teams in the East. And it got me thinking, they're basically what they're doing or what anybody's doing by ranking the teams in the league next season is talking about championship equity next season. What are the odds that a team, kind of ranking the teams of who's most likely to win a championship? Are the Cavs more likely to win than the Knicks? Or, who has better odds of winning next season, the Clippers or the Rockets? I was thinking that, that's all just next season. And I think from a Wolves perspective, this is a little bit more of an interesting conversation, is talking about expected championships over the next few seasons. I don't think the Wolves have a great chance at winning a championship next year. The West is loaded. Not a lot of teams have a great chance at winning a championship next year, but I do think the Wolves have some real championship equity over the next few years, as Ant theoretically continues to ascend into his prime, whatever. So what really got me thinking about this, or what we're going to do today, was Britt Robson and I recorded the day after the NBA Finals when Oklahoma City won the championship after Game 7. And I asked Britt on that episode, how many more championships do the Thunder win in the 2020s? 4 more seasons of the 2020s, 26 champion, 27, 28, 29. And Britt said he thought the Thunder would win 2 of the next 4. Because I kind of phrased it to him, I'm like, more or less than 1.5 championships for the Thunder over the next 4 years. I wasn't as confident as Britt, and I think spending a little bit more time thinking about it last week, I do think 1.5 or 2 championships to expect out of the Thunder or any team is a lot. But I wanted to kind of really dig into this and do it with more teams than just the Thunder. So we'll talk about this with Jace when we bring him on. But the 2 questions I wanted to answer, or that I thought of when I was thinking about doing this, are, other than OKC, who has the most championship equity in the league over the next 4 seasons? Again, the rest of the 2020s. If we're giving the most, championship equity to OKC, who are we giving the second most to? And then from a Wolves lens, question 2, how many teams have more championship equity than the Wolves for the rest of the 2020s? So we'll see where this kind of goes. I put together a list. I got Jace Frederick joining me here in a second, Wolves beat writer from the St. Paul Pioneer Press. And we're going to kind of go through, our rankings of who has the most championship equity. Think about it. There's 4 more championships for the rest of the 2020s. We assigned a number value to the teams out of that 4. Basically, we got to split this 4 championship pie. So we went into decimals and stuff like that. I don't know what I'm recording this before I bring Jace on, so I don't know what his are. I made a list ranking them and assigning an expected championships value over the 2020s. So I hope that makes sense as we get going here. But it was the Brit conversation about the Thunder more or less than 1.5 championships that kind of got this whole idea going for me. So we are going to rank the championship equity of the teams around the NBA for the next few seasons on this episode. So yeah, that with Jace Frederick, and a little bit of Wolves talk at the end coming up next. All right, we are now joined by Jace Frederick. Jace, I just recorded a little open before I briefly explained to the audience before bringing you on, what I kind of want us to do today. Really, it's just kind of ranking how we think these championships are going to be split up over the next 4 years. I emailed you the plan. Rest of the 2020s, there's 4 more championships to be won. How many of those belong to OKC? Is it 1, 1.5, 2, whatever? Is Wembanyama going to win 1? And where do the Wolves rank? I thought like it was interesting to think about. So you'd have to say, if the Wolves win one championship over the next 4 years, that would be their expected value for a championship would be 0.5, right? Over the course of 4 years. I have 8 teams written down with the value next to it. I think really it's just going to be about just kind of ranking the teams. But I did ask you to rank them. I did ask you to assign a numerical value to their championship equity. Before we get started, we haven't really talked. I emailed that to you. Do we need to clarify anything?
No, I don't think so. In general, I was treating it as basically the percent chance they have of winning one, or if I think they're going to win more than one, it's a number above one.
Yes.
But the other numbers, like if I have like a 0.6 in my head, that's 60% chance that they probably win one over the next 4 years, right? Like, well, actually, that wouldn't even be right because that would be
yeah.
Okay, right. Yes. Yep.
But it's like, okay, so
Yes,
what I said to you,
yes.
what I sent to you was the championship odds.
Yes.
Of like for next season. This is a great way to do it.
Read that out. That's a good way to do it. I use it as my baseline.
The Thunder have, according to Vegas or whatever, they have a 30% chance to win it all next season. So if you say the Thunder for each of the next 4 seasons have a 30% chance at winning a championship, that's 0.3 equity per season times 4, 1.2 championships. And for me, I thought that was, is a whatever. We'll get into that. But like Cleveland has the second best odds, and Vegas gives them a 12. They're plus 750. Vegas gives them a 12% chance of winning a championship next year. Now, I don't think Cleveland will have the same odds every single year for the next 4 years. But if you did that and you applied 12%, 12%, 12%, 12%, that'd be 0.48. So their equity would be like half a championship over the next 4 seasons. Obviously, stuff moves every single year. But that was a way for me to kind of start thinking about it really after the Oklahoma City part of it. I think that kind of, which I'm just curious where you're at on that with OKC. How many of this 4 championship pie does Oklahoma City get? And then how much do those does the rest of the league, share the other 3 or whatever championships available? That helpful?
Yeah. So the general practice, you probably listen to that and you're like, I don't get it.
Yep.
And that's
I tried,
fine.
man.
This is just a baseline. Like, here's like an exercise we did of like, and then we're gonna rank who's most likely to win basically a championship over the next 4 years in our minds.
Yes.
And why? So I definitely put the Thunder at number 1. I think you'd be insane not to. And I did, using your 1.2 number, I just went a little lower because I was just kind of making numbers fit my own pie with the teams that I had to list. I did 1.1. I am very confident that they'll win a title in the next 4 years. How many? I don't know. It's very hard. Although I would say, like, I like this idea of like dynasty, and how difficult it is to go back to back, and we've had so many different ones. I do think part of that equation is maybe a little bit that, like, how many superstars have won titles, like players good enough to sustain that level of success.
Right.
I would say like Jokic. Steph's just gotten a little older to where he's probably not that same level of player to have done that. I think it requires like a true top 3 to 5 player to sustain these types of things. And I do think that along with everything else OKC has going for it, I think Shea is maybe in that bucket of guys who in the past you've needed like a top 3 guy if you're going to win 3 titles in 5 years or whatever. And I think Shea can be in that bucket. I do think Jokic is in that bucket. And maybe even like a Giannis or whatever. But other things have to go your way. But now we talk about how difficult it is, but now we have this team that has resources, has good pieces like locked in around it, and a top 3 to 5 NBA player. So I think like, as far as like things that have been needed in the past, like we can talk about parity, but I really do think this is a team that is more built to have it. That type of run where, but going back to back, I don't know, that's really hard. But winning multiple, maybe even winning 2 of the next 4, like legitimately possible in my mind.
Yeah, I
obviously I don't. I don't think 2 is likely. Obviously, I put 1.1, but
right. But they could
in play.
That means you saying 1.1 and I'm saying 1.2 is we would definitely bet that the Thunder win another championship over the next 4 seasons, and that doesn't sound like that hot of a take. but you do actually kind of go through this and you start thinking about like other teams having an opportunity given where the kind of the league is, and there is more parity or less dynastic teams in it. And I mean, I know where you're at on the Thunder and I know where I am too. We both really think highly of this team. And we would both say that if you set the over under at 1.5 championships for the Thunder for the next 4 seasons, we would take the under. And I think that in and of itself is kind of an interesting thing when, like you said, they do have a top, probably we both say Shea's the 3rd best player in the NBA, right? Jokic, Giannis, Shea, something like that. I don't know who. Luka.
Did you see that Men's Health magazine? Did you see that? Did you see those pictures?
It might have given the Lakers 0.1 more.
See those pictures? Did you see how good he is? And he's like this big, overweight, out of shape human being, and now he looks like that. Yeah. Okay. 3 for now.
Angles.
I mean, three for now. Yeah. There was no angle to make what he looked like the past couple years look skinny. Like, but
that's fair. Well, I'm curious to see if it's your second one. I want to stay, but with OKC.
Yeah.
MVP, MVP caliber player.
Yeah.
They're not even in the luxury tax still. Like that's coming in another season is when they get really expensive, when Chet's contract and J-Dub's contract that people have seen been reported, like, yeah, that's a contract, but it doesn't start till the 26-27 season. So they're still in a really good financial situation. They have young guys waiting in the wings. They have a good coach, and then they have a million assets, man. Have you looked at this? Like, it's kind of hard to figure out their assets because they're all like, what's that word from Harry Potter? Horcruxed, where they're all like split up in a bunch of different ways. But just next season's draft, they have Houston's top 4 protected pick, Utah's top 8 protected pick, Philly's top 4 protected pick, and the Clippers unprotected pick. Okay, and it's
but I would like to say, like, yeah, things can break any different way. What was the Philly version?
Top 4.
Okay, that one could be a decent pick, but even still, like, you get to 14, 15 in the draft, it's like, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we'll see, and like Utah, you're not getting that pick. Houston, what, like, I mean, we think that pick's going to be in the late 20s, like, right? Like 25, 26, somewhere in there. Like, so I agree with you that on paper, a lot of these things look great, but not a lot of them are like materializing in a great way. Like the Philly one this year should have, and that would have been a real boon for them. And it didn't. They got unlucky that it didn't. And now it's like, okay, a lot of these other ones, I mean, I don't even know, like, if you're looking to trade or whatever, people are like, do we really want that? That's not going to.
No, I think I think it's a great thing to bring up, with the Thunder, because like what we just do is we go, we have the most assets in the league, which is true, or like extra assets in the league. But there's a big difference between like assets, just having assets, and having elite assets. And so it's almost like a team like Brooklyn or Utah, regardless of what other picks that they have from other teams, they have more elite assets because they suck.
Right.
And they're going to probably get top 5 picks for the next couple of seasons. So I think that's totally fair.
That top 8 protection totally explains Utah's offseason. I was like, oh, okay. But then I didn't pay that much attention when you said that. I was like, okay, I see what they're doing here. Okay, yeah.
But overall, though, we would agree that the Thunder are in this incredible position. 26-year-old MVP, already won a championship. Money's good, extra assets. I just think it's interesting that both of us would still say, with all of those things, probably just one more championship for the rest of the 2020s, which I think says something about what you were getting to before about these dynasty things. It's just maybe we need to change our sort of inputs of what those are, or if it's even really possible or plausible to anticipate a team to win, 3-4 championships in 4 or 5 years.
The fact that they're young helps in that. I don't even mean like, oh, they'll still be good in 4 years. Like, I really do mean that we just see how hard it is to get through a season in a playoffs, just with just age and endurance, and like that doesn't guarantee anything. Like Jason Tatum wasn't old, Tyrese Halliburton wasn't old. Like that doesn't matter. Like it's your body is going through a lot of wear to make these runs, and then it's like having juice in the tank for the next year after that. So that helps, but like so many things can go wrong along the way. alongside somebody just being better than you in a best of 7. Like that's like that's like all percentage of the equation of you not winning, and then everything else is injuries, health, whatever, like just motivation, like stamina. That's another whole piece of the pie. So that's why it is really hard to like you won one. So like if we're saying that they win one more, then that's us saying they win 2 in a 5-year span. Like that's really good. That hasn't been done in the last 5-year span by anybody. So like it's a 7 straight thing. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's hard. And so 3 in a 5-year span, that is as good as you could do, I think, right now, given the aprons and all of that. So that's why that almost seems implausible to me, but they're at least within the realm, which is a huge compliment.
I don't want to take too much time at Oklahoma City because I'm curious what
11 minutes. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I do have one more question though, because I was talking to my buddy about this, and we were doing the championship odds thing, and I was like, oh, they got a 30% chance this year. Probably have about that the rest of the time. And what he said to me, he goes, don't you think that their odds of winning championships will go up over the next few years? And I don't know. Like, I don't know if I think they do or will. They'll get a little bit more mature. They're not going to like age out of this anytime soon, but I didn't like progressively give them more year-to-year championship equity in my head. What do you think about that?
So I think 30% this next year would be too high. I do think that it's really hard to repeat. Just because like they played so much more basketball than everybody else, and Indiana did too, and that's not going to matter with Indiana because they're not going to be in championship contention this next year.
They're not on your list.
They're not, but I almost felt bad about it because obviously we're only Xing this year off.
Yeah, that's true.
So I felt a little bad about like, well, I don't know, Siakam, Halliburton. Like, I don't think they have. I'm not going to give them a 0.2 here, but I didn't. But I definitely felt bad about that. Felt like maybe I was wrong there. But this next year, no. But then after that, I would be like, okay, now maybe it's like 35, 40%, depending on the rest of league movement. Nobody's 40% chance to win the title right now, but. Right around there, but better than 30. I don't know. In an NBA season, like I think that's getting a little ridiculous at some point. Like this isn't like a Warriors level roster advantage.
Yeah, right. No, and it's like nobody can. Probably the Warriors were the last team to have like even money odds to win the championship. I think that's what it was.
Like that was you had 4 of the top. I mean, I don't know, 20 players in the NBA. Like, it's like, I'd give Team USA a really good chance to win the next gold medal. Like, they have all the best players. Like, this isn't that. Even if you have a lot of really good players, other teams have a lot of really good players too.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Falling Knife Brewing Company. Falling Knife was the spot to watch Wolves games this past season, but we want to remind you that is the case this summer for Minnesota Lynx games as well. This Wednesday night, they play the Liberty on Wednesday, and they play the Aces again on Saturday afternoon. If you are feeling a summer brewery day next weekend, mix in some Lynx viewing over at Falling Knife. Also, all summer, all Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, Falling Knife has different versions of trivia going on. You can always check the weekly schedule of what is going on over at Falling Knife by following them on Instagram at Falling Knife BC. Seriously, I know this is the time of year where maybe you don't have that time in the winter, or not a brewery person in the winter. Go hang out on the patio. Go hang out with some good people over at Falling Knife Brewing Company. Lynx games this week. Trivia going on as well. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. You can, of course, keep making Prize Picks lineups, doing MLB and WNBA games, the things they have going on right now. But I want to show you today the season-long NBA Prize Picks they have up there. How season-long Prize Picks works is they set a number for season-long stats, and you take more or less on that number, but it's a season-long stat, right? Not just for a game. So for Anthony Edwards, you can see up on the screen here, his season-long more or less numbers for Prize Picks are set next season at 27.4 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 4.6 assists per game, and 3.5 made threes per game. It's kind of fun to have a season-long investment in a player to track over the course of the year. I know it's not the immediate result of putting together a Prize Picks lineup for one night, but for the season-long things, I genuinely had a lot of fun doing this with a few of my friends last year on season-long NFL numbers. Those are up there on Prize Picks as well. If you want to check them out, maybe you're getting your fantasy team ready. It's stats, season-long, whatever. Apply it there. Plenty going on there over at Prize Picks. As a reminder, to put together a lineup at Prize Picks, all you need to do is put 2 or more picks in your lineup, to win. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, all you have to do is put in the promo code DANE when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in lineups when you place your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code DANE when you create your account. Who was your second team?
All right, so I put Denver, and at some point I realized when I was doing this, and I didn't feel bad about it. I was just basically picking like best players, because I just think that dictates everything, and it's best players who kind of dictate the way your team plays and operates and who you are. I put the Nuggets I gave them a 0.7. Oh wow, I feel great about that. I don't see them not winning one more title in the Nikola Jokic era, and I like what they've done this offseason. I think everybody does. And that to me not only signals like, okay, they have a better chance this year, but it to me signals they seem more aware of what they have, what they need, and are willing to do to try to actually maximize this era and not be like, let's try to outthink everybody on this stuff and do things like the right way. It's like, how do we make sure that we're putting a competent roster and giving Jokic a real chance to win this year? And that tells me they'll probably do the same next year and the year after that. And that guy's too good to not win one more. I have a firm belief in that.
Yeah. Championship odds for them next season are plus 850, which is 10.5% chance of winning the championship. If you did that times 4, it's 0.4. I just do think that, the odds annually of Jokic winning a championship are higher than 10%. If something happens to OKC, I think they become the clear title favorites next season, kind of obviously. And I think it'll kind of be that case every season where you'll either go, the Nuggets are the favorites to win the championship because they have Jokic, or they're your first team you're going to go to if something happens to the Thunder or whatever that next team is. That team that is the favorite there. They have Jokic, who's that good, who puts them in that conversation. And yeah, like, I don't know, before this offseason where we saw them do things that make us believe this team is going to be probably a lot better than it was a season ago. Yeah, you get that and what improved my odds for them, and not just for next season, but for the next 3 seasons after this one, to think about, they're probably going to be, going for it. And even maybe by the end, they're going to be like Milwaukee, where you're doing kind of crazy, stupid stuff, but you're like, well, we'll take another 15% bite at the apple here in 2029 to go for it with Jokic when he's 33 or whatever it is. I had them second in mind, and I actually kind of like kept boosting them up the more I thought about this next tier right below them that started to get a little bit more congested. But I think Denver has the second best chance to win the championship next season and the second most championship equity over the next 4 years.
Especially when we're doing it over like a 4-year span. Like, right. Like I'm not saying he'll be this by 2029, but right now he's so clearly the best player that it gives you such a big advantage that over a 4-year span, like, that's going to carry some weight. Like we see in the playoffs how hard it is to eliminate this dude. Like, it took everything OKC had. It took everything Minnesota had 2 years ago. Like, it's nearly impossible to knock him out. And that was with very imperfect rosters. And I'm not saying it's perfect now, but it's a lot better. So if like health plays out for them, I don't know, maybe they will just like run through everybody in the playoffs next year. And I'd be like, I guess that kind of makes sense, plus 850 or whatever that is. Like, plus 850 or whatever. Like, and I think 23 is a pretty bad year in general in the NBA. Like, I mean, not as much as anybody. They had the worst net rating of any champ in the last 15 years. But yeah, plus 850, like on the best player in the world with, I think, a solid roster around him. Like, that's a good bet. Yeah, I literally was like, I don't know, it's 0.7 too low. Because I'm pretty sure of all the other teams that he'll get one in these next 4 years. And I'm assuming it'll be on Denver.
I had 0.6 initially, and I bumped it up to 0.7 as I was going. And I just want to say to everybody listening right now, you're probably being like, what? These numbers are low. Write it down. Write it out. It's like when we did the rotation thing before. You like can't give everybody 26 minutes in the 8-man rotation. There's not enough minutes.
Especially because you wanted 8 teams, and I think that's right. Like, because if you're saying all of a sudden you're getting down to 0 for some of these teams, it's like it's not 0 for like expected championships over the next 4 years. Like there's a lot of decimals, but I think 8 teams is fair. Like you should include 8 teams who have a chance to win the title over these next 4 years, and then like splitting 8 ways with we each gave the Thunder more than one. Not a lot left. Not a lot left.
Well, I mean, for me, I got 1.2 for OKC, and I got Denver at 0.7. That's half the championships.
Yeah.
For you're just about there. Too. And I think, and I thought about this, I went through it and like wrote a change, like did a lot of different versions of this. And like, I do feel that those guys have the most equity. It is weird. Now, I don't know about when your first Eastern Conference team is going to show up, but spoiler, mine isn't coming for a while. Like that was an interesting sort of thing. Like they're going to cannibalize themselves a little bit.
Yeah. Mine's like a little bit higher, but that was only because of one thing. Yeah, and I did this with that in mind. That's like I have to have an East team in here, and like somebody's going to every year an East team gets to the finals. Like
right?
And I understand they might be big underdogs, but we just saw like you can still contend and maybe win these things, and that is a percentage chance.
Right, and times 4.
Right.
Who did you have for your third team?
I don't like this. I don't know why I did this. I put the Spurs, and I don't like that I did it. You did too? Yeah. Oh my god. I did 0.5, and I don't. Oh my god, we didn't talk about any of this.
No. That's funny.
I still am like, I think maybe I'm jumping the gun on Wemby because like hasn't been part of a winning basketball team in the NBA yet, But man, you see it, and man, you see like the assets that they have and the young pieces they have that you like, and it's hard for me to not be like, okay, I see that right now. And in these next 4 years, I don't think they're going to become like an OKC-ish like thing. I do. So at some point in the next 4, maybe it is year 3 or year 4. But if you're heading into the third year, if we're heading into 2028, be like, Jace, they don't have one yet. I'd be like, I still feel pretty good. That one's coming. Not this year, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, this is something that you're just watching build, and you're like, that's going to be an issue for everybody. And yeah, I think they'll probably be a pretty dominant team that maybe is like a favorite by the end of this decade.
It is interesting because they have no championship equity this season. It's 7
literally it's the same as the Pacers, and we didn't put the Pacers on the list.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, but you are. I mean, obviously, it's the Wemby part of it. But you also have. I mean, you have good other young pieces already on the roster. That were high recent draft picks, reigning rookie of the year. They just have added Harper as second overall pick. Other young guys there. Plus, even after going to get De'Aaron Fox, who they have, by the way, they still are in a pretty good asset situation overall to be able to add and adjust over the course of time. And a lot of these other teams, for me, right below San Antonio, are very limited in that of being able to continue to add over the time. A lot of these other teams, like the Wolves, who have already like invested a lot of assets, are just banking on internal development really to reach a championship level over the next 4 years. It's not like you can't make no moves or anything like that, but you can't go out. The Wolves can't go out and make the 4 first-round picks for a player type trade that, San Antonio or some of these other teams, Oklahoma City, can there. And that in and of itself, like we were talking about with Oklahoma City, shouldn't be giving you like a ton of championship equity. But the way I thought about it, when you already have a star player, or what we assume is going to be a superstar player in Wemby or Shea, and you can add on top of that, yeah, that's where that equity, I think the equity grows there. You have the good player plus like water to sort of feed it over the next 4 seasons. So I actually felt initially I felt weird about putting San Antonio third because they had no equity this season. But by the time I kind of kept going with my list, I was like, oh no, I do feel good about them being third. And yeah, I think I'd bet that they win 1 championship in the next 4 years. Or I think it's a fair line. That's what we're sending it at. More or less than half a championship for the next 4 years. Yeah, I think it's a fair line for the Spurs.
I mean, at that point, are we saying it's basically even money that they win one in the next 4? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's exactly the same as if a team was, if the Thunder were plus 100 to win the championship this season, they'd have 0.5
for this year
championship equity there. So now probably 22 minutes into this
maybe you understand
podcast,
it.
People know what we're doing.
Man, I feel like now I know what we're doing.
Who'd you have fourth?
So this is where I put an East team in. And it's Cleveland. And I did 0.4. And a big part of that is I am very confident they're going to win the Eastern Conference this year. And this was like a team that won so many games this last year and definitely was banged up in the second round, had that fluke loss, and Indiana was really good. And the fact that they played Indiana earlier, I think put more of like a stain on their resume or whatever. But I think that, I had to check and look, and I was like, yep, okay, Donovan Mitchell's still like 28. Okay, that makes sense. And all these other guys, like, there's still a chance to grow and learn what needs to be better and all of this. And there's a motivation factor, and they didn't play that deep into the season this year. So I really like Cleveland's chances and just the core that they have of like, this is a team that is clearly proven is a very good basketball team. And I think will be the class of the East this year and maybe moving forward. And like Evan Mobley is kind of their, like, where can it continue to ascend? Even Darius Garland to some degree. And I like this team, and I think it's going to be underrated because of the way they exited. But like I said, like, that was kind of the way that a lot of people just exited to Indiana. So I don't hold it against them as much as I did when it happened.
I had them as my top Eastern Conference team too. A couple down, and again, I don't know if I'm doing some stupid math thing by stacking up too many West teams above East teams. But we are aligned on Cleveland having the most championship equity in the Eastern Conference the rest of the way, and a lot of that just has to do with the equity they have this coming season. And
it's plus 250 on DraftKings. I don't know what it is on anything else, but yeah, I looked at that, and it's plus 250 to win the East. And that, so that plays out
to win the championship is
right.
Yep.
Yeah. I
and
mean,
it's 12% chance this year. So you extrapolate that over 4 years, that's 0.48. Kind of that 50% chance of winning one championship number. Now that's where I ran into a little bit of
this is the best chance. Cleveland. I agree that this is the best chance. Like, and I don't even mind that in the sense of like, I don't think Oklahoma City is going to win it this year because of how hard it is to go back to back. So it's like, maybe you're not getting some super team in the finals either. If you get there, it might just be some team that was just a little bit fresher than Oklahoma City
or Denver and Oklahoma City had just played a 7-game war in the Western Conference Finals. And I don't know, you beat the Magic or something. Like, yeah, I think those are factors too in the Eastern Conference's favor. If like, it's going to be a lot more body blows going on in the Western Conference, not just for this year, but probably for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a fan of Cleveland this year specifically, but I definitely agree. Like, so if I think Cleveland has, maybe I think that number's low. Maybe I think Cleveland has a 20% chance of something or 18 or whatever winning the title this year. Then I do think that number is going to continue to dip year over year. So if we get through 2 years here and they haven't won, to be like, you still feel good about that 0.4, Jace? Like, no, I do not.
No, right. No,
nope, I've already lost this bet. Like,
right? Or you're losing it. Your
depending on
number is bad. Yeah,
depending on how it all played out. Because 2 years from now, I might be like, Cleveland blew it up because they didn't win the title. Yeah, okay.
Well, and that was because I was trying to convince myself to put them higher.
Yeah,
and I don't. We need to like create a term for this, but teams are going to do the fire sale thing as they get into the second apron for a couple of years thing that Boston just did, which we've talked about. That was easier for them to get off money than maybe we thought it would have been, but they blew it up. They
easier also to pull the trigger on it because of
easy to pull the trigger on it, but that doesn't help Boston's championship equity. And I think Cleveland in the next 4 years is going to have to hit that button at some point, given that they are currently in a significantly worse financial situation or significantly more expensive situation right now. Like, I think they probably hit that wall in a year or two, and the Thunder probably hit it in 4, maybe at the very end of the 2020s when Shea's Supermax kicks in. And I don't know. I mean, and these are all hard to say too, because it's about, is your owner going to be willing to pay crazy amounts of luxury tax or not? We can't really know those things, but we're aligned on both liking Cleveland as the best odds there. I had the Lakers as my fourth team. So we both had OKC, Denver, San Antonio, 1, 2, 3. You had Cleveland at fourth at 0.4, and I had the Lakers. at 0.4 there. And
yeah, I should also, I know
go ahead.
like they were higher on the list, but I did also have the Lakers at 0.4. So
Okay.
yeah,
So
we're
we're
the same number, and you could have flipped them either way. That's just how I have them on my list. I have a bunch of ties in these
it gets real. It gets real tight now if we're not like rounding to multiple decimals.
But I would put if I was putting in my head, I would put the Cavaliers higher than the Lakers. Like if I was like, who's more likely, I would put Cleveland, and that's why I put them higher on my list.
Mm-hmm. So the Lakers have Luka. They also currently have LeBron. So that gives them, long shot odds at a championship to the same extent. They have the same odds as like the Wolves do, 5% chance of winning the championship this next season. I think the Wolves are, the Lakers are plus 1,700, 5.5% chance. The Wolves are plus 1,800, 5% chance of winning the championship next season. I honestly had the Lakers and the Wolves close. I do think part of this stuff is the market and some of those sort of things and what the salary cap setup is going to be. And, if we trust the reporting and the messaging that's been kind of going on around the Lakers this summer, is they firmly plan to, by 2027, bring in a new co-star with cap space to have, play with Luka for the 27-28 and the 28-29 season for our purposes of this 2020s championship equity thing. I don't think they'll win a championship the next 2 years until they, do that. I don't think the Lakers have a very good shot there.
I mean, to be clear, we don't think they're going to win the championship in the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Right. I guess what
anything
I'm
under
saying
0.5 means we don't think so, and that.
Yeah, right. I don't think the Lakers will win a championship the next 4 years. I wouldn't bet on that. I just think they're one of the teams where I felt pretty good about like keeping their equity the same the whole time, because it's like 2 years of Luka and LeBron, or however LeBron's here. I don't really like the current construct of the Lakers roster around them. That's more so my issue. But if by 27, 28, can they kind of have just as much star power on their team, plus have a roster around it that makes a little bit more sense? Yeah, we got to like factor in the possibility that they're going to just go get some, top 8 player in the league somehow in 2027. It's not a guarantee, but like I thought that had to factor into this. I don't love that that's a factor in this, but yeah, it pushed them ahead of the Wolves for me. Today's show is brought to you by Adriana Lonick at Coldwell Banker Realty. And if it is time to buy or sell your home, please do reach out to Adriana at Coldwell Banker Realty to help you with that process. All you need to do to contact her is go to thedancingrealtor.com, or you can call or text her at 715-304-9920 to book a free strategy session. Free strategy session, one thing that it does, it's going to enter you to win some free Wolves tickets from us. But 2, it's free, and it gets the ball rolling for you on the process of buying or selling your home. It's really easy to get lost in the home buying process without guidance from your realtor. And if you do set up that free consultation with her, you're going to learn about what it is that you need to do. And again, you'll be entered to win some free Wolves tickets next season. I know there's a chunk of you out there listening who are in that process of thinking about purchasing a home. You're thinking about it, maybe procrastinating it. The reality of the situation is you need a realtor to help you get the ball rolling. If this is you, go to thedancingrealtor.com for more information, or feel free to call or text Adriana at 715-304-9920 to book that free strategy session. Like I said, mention this podcast and get entered to win a pair of free Timberwolves tickets when you book that consultation.
Yeah, and I think for me, the Wolves, it's this, and I know we'll talk about the Wolves when we get to them, but it's like I've seen this iteration of the Wolves, and it does like seem to have a ceiling right now, and you can just say like development and guys getting better and improving, but then I also see like these important pieces are maybe kind of aging. So like, are these two things going to balance out and the ceiling going to stay around the same? That's how I can see it playing out in my mind. Unless some of these young guys are like, can eventually be better than the guys they're replacing in the years to come. And maybe that happens. And I bet maybe the Wolves, in the front office are probably like, yes, or whatever. But the Lakers, when you have like a Luka Doncic, who, we both firmly believe is a top 4 or 5 player, we've seen him take a team that wasn't very good to the West Finals, take a team that was solid to the NBA Finals. Like the ceiling raiser he can be, the things he can do, and the ways he can just dismantle great teams. And now if you do see this guy who I know like it's off season or whatever, but like you cannot deny that looks way different, like way different. And the version of him that looked like that in the past was this like incredible player that even ascends beyond the guy who didn't look as great physically, who was still a dominant basketball player the last couple of years, who literally carried a team to the finals. Like when he'd be like, kind of looks out of shape to me. Yeah, like it's that automatically to me is like, it doesn't even take getting that much right roster wise to give yourself that chance to do so. And then if you do hit it right, if you do put the right combination together, it's like, wow, now this is one of the best 3 teams in the NBA, or that team in the playoffs that you're like, we don't want to face those guys. Like the Wolves already didn't want to face the Lakers. Like, there were guys in the locker room. I know that they played out really well, but like they weren't thrilled when it was the Lakers who were their first round opponent on the final game of the regular season.
What was that? What was the shift? It was, they were going,
they're going to play Denver. Instead they played the Lakers, and you can just say they wanted to play Denver, but they weren't thrilled when it was the Lakers, because there is like a fear of Luka Doncic, and I know it all worked out in Minnesota's favor for sure, but that's just it. Like everybody just knows what he can do. So over the next 4 years, like he's not going to put together some special run and win a title. Like I would bet on him to do that, and because I've seen how far I've seen him bring a team to the NBA finals, so that's kind of it. And like you said, the current version of the Lakers, no, we don't think the Lakers are like a serious threat to win the West this year. Right. We don't, certainly don't.
Well, we're in that range. We're already in that range. Like right now of just having, OKC and Denver in the West, we're giving them a ton of equity to come out of the West next season.
Yeah. I think that's a clear cut for me. Yeah. For me, that's a clear cut of these are the 2 teams that I'd almost be surprised if it wasn't one of those 2. And I knew that the Wolves and Houston are contenders for sure. And you don't know how things are going to break. But for me, those are the top 2 that I'm like, I would be surprised if it's not one of those 2.
Let's do the Wolves, because they're my 5th. They're my 5th team, and we're kind of here. And I wrestled with them against the Lakers.
They are mine too. Wait, okay, no, they're my 6 because I had the Cavs. Yeah. But I had him at point. I had him at 0.3, so that is lower.
I have the Wolves at 0.3 as well. And again, 5% chance of winning the championship this year, plus 1,800. I do think it's probably I think the Wolves are going to stay similarly good for the 2020s. I think that's fair to say. And even if you don't think they get a lot better, there's probably some internal development coming over the next few years. And while they have no assets to trade, like draft picks to trade, their players are all under contract, for like the whole time. Edwards, McDaniels, Reed, and Baron J are all under contract through 2029. This whole sample size we're talking about. Dillingham and Shannon are under contract through 2028, but they're restricted free agents in 2029. We know how the restricted market works. Like if they're not traded before their rookie deal, those guys are probably going to be on the team the entirety of the 2020s as well. Gobert and Randall, 2 more years plus player options for the 3rd year, so probably 3 years. DiVincenzo for 2 more years. Conley is on an expiring, probably on the verge of retirement, so that's going to be one that kind of falls off here. But that is what kept the Wolves up for me. Once I kind of started getting into this range, I started looking at assets and stuff more, and it's like the Wolves are in the worst draft pick asset situation just about out of anybody. But this matters too, of having good young players already under contract who are probably going to be just getting into their prime at the late 2020s. Like, yeah, that's a team that I'll say has the 5th most championship equity in the NBA. That's a pretty big, I think accomplishment for the Wolves, even if my number is 0.3. I wouldn't bet on the Wolves winning a championship the next 4 years, but I think they have the 5th best championship equity over the next 4 years.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, like I have them this high because of Anthony Edwards. Like that's why I have them this high on the list. And maybe the only thing where you could be like they should be higher is if you think that he is going to usurp some of these players that I built up and been like, they have that guy, they're not going to contend for a title. You'd be like, well, the Wolves have Anthony Edwards. And for me, that would just take a little bit more of seeing the just elevation of everybody else around you. Like, wow, this game becomes so much easier for them because Ant's out there, and he definitely does some of that. Like, he definitely makes it like he's attracting this many guys, so now everybody else is playing, 4-on-3 or whatever. But to me, it's even more of
it's not Luka level, it's not Jokic's fault.
It's not Luka level, of like Ant's not making the game, like not being like here's what Rudy needs, blah blah blah, like that kind of stuff. Like here's what everybody needs, here's how they're all I'm going to make sure they're in their spots and comfortable on whatever, like, and
Mhm.
that kind of thing. I'm not making the game easier for you. I'm literally elevating you as a player. That's what has to come. And if he does do that, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this should have been a 0.5 or whatever.
Right.
Because there are the pieces, like you said, locked in around him that guarantees that they should have a competitive team, given who he is and who those other guys are. Like, you just take Nas, Jaden, and Ant. Like, that's a competitive team.
Mhm.
Imperfect, sure, but like, couldn't make a run at any point. That's kind of always been their bet. And then it just comes down to, like as Gobert and Conley kind of phase out eventually, Gobert maybe just in terms of he's here but less effective, and Conley maybe he's not here. How do those other guys fill in? Like Berenger, like, okay, what do you eventually become? That
Mhm.
like it certainly there looked like flashes in summer league. I really don't need to read like anything in the summer league, just because I've seen, like I was looking through for fun the other like a couple weeks ago when TJ was doing this great stuff in there. And I was like, those are like pretty common summer league numbers. And I know he was doing it in a physically dominant way, which is like, this looks so easy that's what
Mhm.
I think you take away from it. But then I was like, okay, let's look in 2022. You know who averaged 20 and 5?
Who?
4 years ago? Bones Highland. And that was an efficient 20 and 5,
Yeah,
and who led the Wolves with 22 points a game that summer league? Jalen Noel. It's like, it doesn't necessarily mean like,
yeah, right.
like it's very easy to talk yourself into any of these things. But with like TJ, we've seen like, okay, I see, at least in a role, I see him already how he fits in. Now, can he elevate and be more of like an offensive running mate for Ant? We don't know that yet. And to make assumptions on that is kind of like, that's quite a leap in my mind. And then Rob, like, how does he fit in? Is he more than just this 6-man microwave? Like you've even mentioned it. Like, when did he look most comfortable? When he was the guy out there. And like, it's mixing being the guy at various points and picking your spots to do that, and knowing when, like, okay, can I effectively run this team and still maintain a rhythm? That's all part of that goes into it. Can you do that? That's when you can be like a starting point guard. So there's a lot where these guys have to elevate into like, oh yeah, that's a championship level point guard. That's a championship level number 3 scoring option or whatever. That kind of stuff.
What do you make of like the idea of kind of 3 bites at it with Berenger, Dillingham, and Shannon? Though I mean, I think we can. I think you're pouring proper water on like what Shannon did there, and obviously when I'm up at some, like, I was really impressed by Terrence Shannon Jr.
And I
guess
it's exactly what I would hope to see. Yeah,
So, but you're right in that doesn't guarantee anything for him. Dillingham, it doesn't guarantee anything for him. But I do feel like all 3 of these guys like have shown elements over the brief time that we've seen them as prospects that they're like, yeah, these are like lottery level prospects, and I don't know what the exact hit rate of that is, but I think they have 3 of those in those 3 guys of hitting into being, starters, like a good starter. I don't think it's. I don't want to put numbers on it. Go ahead.
Here's my thought of, and you can say maybe you don't need that with Nas, Jaden, Ant progressing. But my thought on that is, okay, like especially last year, you had really high level Rudy Gobert, you had pretty dang high level Mike Conley. So if Rob is not just like good starter, like you have to at least get to, if not exceed, the player that you're replacing. Berenger has to at least get to, if not exceed, the level which like Rudy, last year, 2 years ago, was Defensive Player of the Year again. So like, it's not just like, can they just be a good starter? Because we've seen like what's enough and what's not enough to win the title. So that's where it comes into me again of like those things, if they're going to be just starter level players, which is great, that's an amazing hit, then that does, again, I'll come back to Ant raising up more tiers in this game. And clearly like
becoming Shea.
Yes. And I think Shea is the best example of like, yes, can make things better for others, but like is scoring first, and his scoring is just so dominant that it's freeing up others, like, and it's hard to take him out of it. And that's where Ant has to get to.
It's an interesting factor in this, and just the of what we're doing right now, or just the future of the Wolves in general. And I understand a lot of people listening to this do not think highly of Mike Conley or Rudy Gobert, but there is a floor of production and competence that both of those guys give them, and maturity that is going to be pulled out of this thing eventually. And yes, it will be replaced with Rob Dillingham and Johan Berenger. Like, cool. I just, that concept of Rudy every night, what he brings defensively, Mike's understanding of what they're doing, and just the veteran element of it. I'm super curious to see if and when those guys leave, what what is the delta, of losing that maturity on this team. And I think it's not now. Like right now, I'd be like, okay, that's an issue. Still pretty young. Still these got a lot of young guys. Is it 2 years from now? How reliable have Jaden and Nas and Ant all become? That's going to go up. I believe that's going to go up. But
yeah, because it's not the maturity of Rob and TJ like that. We're not counting on that. It is the guys who are playing every day right now and can their maturity raise, because they're the ones who frankly had like maturity fluctuations throughout even last season. Like there were times where you'd watch Nas and be like, that was a terrible game from Nas, or that was a terrible game from Jaden, or even Ant. It's like kind of checked out. Like they brought it more every now and like maybe it was more consistent, but it certainly wasn't as consistent as it needs to be. So yeah, they're the ones who have to kind of grow into like the veteran, mature guys, and you could say, well, 3 years from now they will, and it is a maybe still to some degree.
No, I absolutely. And I think Ant first and foremost. Like there's the guy you'll get like Jalen Williams in Oklahoma City. Like I think he has games like that. Like you're talking about with Nas. You know who doesn't? Shea. Shea does not have those games, and that's frankly the point I think Ant has been getting to. Been more consistent than it was 2 years ago.
Agreed.
But there is still a gap between his consistency and Shea's consistency. And that is just a requirement for the Wolves to stay in the contender conversation once they start losing veteran pieces later in the 2020s, Randall included, who we haven't talked about really either, but 28, 29, like is he, part of this team too? He gives them some consistency as well. So yeah, I don't know. I feel good about where I have them as the 5th most equity, but the actual amount of equity is low, 0.3 that we both said. We wouldn't bet on a championship in the next 4 years because there are still a lot of questions, though they undeniably, I think, are going to have 4 bites at the apple here, given that Ant and a lot of these guys and almost all these guys are under contract for the entirety of the 2020s.
Right. Yeah. And the bites thing is always so interesting to me because I just don't know how many random championship winners there are. Like you can say like, oh, look at all these teams that won. It's like, they weren't random. Like when the season happened, like they were clearly like the best team. That happens more times than not. Like the teams that make runs, it's like, oh, Dallas made it to the finals. It's like, yeah, they didn't win the title. Like Indiana made it to the finals. Yeah, they didn't win the title. Like, yeah, they got close or whatever, but guess what? Like it would have mattered. I think it would have mattered whether Halliburton was healthy or not. That game 7 was in Oklahoma City. Like it took a miracle for Indiana to win a game in Oklahoma City. I don't know if they would have done it again. Maybe, it would have been fun to watch, obviously, but that stuff all matters. Usually it's the best team. And so like, how can you position yourself to be the best team in one of these seasons? Not just one who'd be like, let's hope we get lucky. Come on now. One time, like even if Denver's like net rating was not impressive the year that they won the title, it looked like throughout the season, they were definitely the best team in the West. And by the end, it looked like they were the best team in the NBA, The only other team who would have said was better than them maybe would have been Boston, but Boston got beat in the East Finals. And frankly, by the time the playoffs were being played, like Denver was probably the best team. But and even still, it's one of two. It's Boston or Denver.
I agree with you, and I'm generally on the like bites at the apple sort of thing. We've talked about that before. Of like, that is kind of what we're talking about right here, though, and in this range of where we rank them. Like, that's part of my reason of why I do have Minnesota above Houston and even Cleveland. In my numbers is like, and I think that's fair. I do think they're going to try all 4 years of the 2020s.
And that's fair. And I think part of it with this is which teams can grow into being the best team eventually. And that's why we both put the Spurs so high, is that we think that by the end we can say like in 28, 29, whatever, we're like, that's the best team. And maybe they'll win the title, maybe they won't, maybe something freaky will happen or whatever. But we think there's a good chance that we get to that point. We're like, that's the best team. And it's a little harder for me to see the point of Minnesota being like the best team. And frankly, is why like my Cleveland pick, it is like, I literally picked them just to win I'm like, I just think they're going to win the East this year. But how many seasons do I think they'll be the best team? Well, you can say, well, they won a lot of games this last year, and that's maybe part of my argument for it. But yeah, every other year it would have to be a random luck, probably win.
Right.
And those can happen too. But yeah, that's probably why my Cleveland one's too high. And why I'm going to be honest, I don't even have Houston on this list. Because I don't know if I see a path. It would have to be Thompson would have to turn into an incredible basketball player, I think, for me to enter a season and be like, Houston is the best team.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Houston. I kept bumping them up. They started out of my thing in others, and I got to 0.3 for them. Same as the Wolves, but I would have the Wolves at like 0.33 and them at 0.30 or whatever.
Sure.
And part of it is a little equity now, a little. I mean, plus 900, 10% chance of winning the championship. What do you think about those odds of Houston 10% this year? Too high? Maybe a little high?
No, 10%. If they got to the finals, they'd probably win. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, say it ends up. It's basically, do I think they're? I don't know. I think that's too high. I really do. I don't because
I think that's fair. I think it can be too high. And okay, so this is the case that I got to. It's like, okay, you got a shot now with KD this season, and I know that make a bunch of people roll their eyes, KD, whatever. But I do think you have it was a 2 seed in the West last year, definitely, and maybe an inflated 2 seed, but a good team. You bring Kevin Durant in there, you have gives you a little bit more equity now. It's like the LeBron in the Luka situation. Houston does have young talent, and I'm with you. Am I sure that Ahmed Thompson is going to be like a top 10 player in the league? No. Şengün, what's the ceiling of that? I don't know. But there are young pieces there. Plus, the thing I think people forget about them is they are loaded up on assets.
Yeah,
too.
Phoenix
that they have the opportunity to make another. They have the opportunity to go get another Kevin Durant thing in 27 or something once this goes away. I'm not giving them good odds of winning it.
That's a good point.
It's 0.3, and I didn't have them initially on there, but I bumped them up a little bit.
I agree with you. That's probably a miss in that. Considering assets and considering like there's such a strong base in place of like that they can take another swing like this. Like the Kevin Durant is not their final swing. It wasn't even that big of a swing, frankly, given how little they had to give up. And then they just have other things too. Like we talk about Rob growing into something. It's like they still have just Reed Shepherd just rotting away there. Like those types of pieces.
Same thing.
Like along with their picks, and then like Thompson is a how good will he become type player. There are other guys I was just like, I don't know. Why do I care if some of these other guys like Jabari Smith or Tari Eason like become even better role players? Like why in my head when I was doing it, I was like, why do I care if these guys get like
for championship equity?
Yeah, for championship equity, and I don't think Durant's like a championship level leader, right? Like in terms of like best player right now. And so then I don't see one on the roster. But you were right in that they have pieces where they could take another swing to get one. And so that matters too.
Yeah. And just younger team, future. I think we're a ways, we're ways down the list here. That's that's fine. Okay, let's wrap this up. I think we're almost there. I'm gonna reread where mine is at right now and yours. I had OKC number 1 at 1.2, Denver number 2 at 0.7, San Antonio 3rd at 0.5, Lakers 4th at 0.4, Wolves 5th at 0.3, Houston 6th at 0.3, Cleveland 7 at 0.2, and I'll just say now my last team was the Knicks because I felt like I had to put another Eastern Conference team in there. I left Boston off. We can talk about that in a second. Yours was OKC 1 at 1.1, Denver 2 at 0.7, San Antonio 3 at 0.5, Cleveland 4 at 0.4, Lakers 5 at 0.4, Minnesota 6 at 0.3. Who are your 7 and 8?
7, I have Orlando at 0.3. Yeah, I mean, Paolo's 22 and Franz and and Jalen Suggs. I'm very intrigued by that core, that identity, that whole defensive team with like a fair amount of offensive talent in the East. That's a team where we can go 2 years from now. We might be like, yeah, I don't know. They've just turned out to be the best team in the East now. And maybe can make a couple year run at it, frankly. I really like the way their pieces all fit together. It just comes down to exactly what type of player Paolo becomes. Yeah, I like Orlando a lot in the market they're in with the opportunity to grow, and we'll see what they become in 3-4 years. And then at 8, I did put the Celtics at 0.2, and it's totally because I could see this whole thing flaming out for them for sure.
Right.
Like I think how this next year plays out matters a little bit. I don't think they can just go be like a 35 win team and then like, okay, now we're a title contender again. But if you do look at it 2 years from now and you go, okay, like after this season they will have, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White again. And isn't that, and then they maybe some flexibility to kind of retool it. Why would that not be something that you can contend with? Yeah, so did I. And that's where I was like, why do I have them there and not like the Pacers there? Those thoughts all went in my head. And the Knicks, like, I have an other at 0.3. So where these are all very well split. But I was just like, that team won the title last year. Like, and so like, there's like a championship DNA there. And frankly, like, I was like, they have Brad Stevens, and I'm pretty confident that he is not going to let them fall off the map and that he will put a contending team together, because he does seem to just operate in the ways that best fit this team at all times. And I don't see him not doing so again to put them in another spot. And obviously I put 0.2, so I don't feel that highly about it. But because I could see them being like, actually, we got a harder reset than we thought. I think that's in play as well. But I do think that the upside for them would be like that. They figured out they make a couple smart moves, and we look at the roster heading into next year and go, ooh, that's pretty good there, right there again.
Yeah, I feel like with the Knicks, I'm kind of taking them over Boston. I'm kind of
this
betting
year
on them now this year. And
it will be, we'd be surprised. The Magic factor into, I guess, but we would be surprised if it wasn't the Knicks or the Cavs coming out of the East, so.
I think so. I don't love the Knicks. I
don't either. That's why I left them off the list, and that clearly you don't think too highly of them either.
I think you got to put in some like Giannis equity there too,
sure.
And now we're getting into dumb, very hypothetical stuff, but
it's July.
I think if we're like, but it's the same thing as the Lakers thing. Like, I don't think the Knicks have a ton of equity this season or the next season, but 2 or 3 seasons from now, could I see them trading Cat for a better player?
And in fairness to the Knicks, like, they lose that game 1. Otherwise, like, they played Indiana really well, and they did outplay Boston. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm going to be honest. I think I don't know, nothing against Mike Brown, but I don't love their coaching change. I think they did get a lot out of it. And I think if you do look at how Indiana performed in the finals, it was like, maybe Indiana was really good. And that was a hard team to adjust to. And like, OKC barely did it. And the Knicks actually were pretty formidable in that. So that would be my way of talking into it. But I think maybe like the coaching thing, it might get worse.
I think it hurt their championship odds for next season.
Yeah. Which is this is a team in the now,
I know.
That's why it doesn't make sense.
I do think, and this is either good analysis because I covered him for a long time, or over analysis because I covered him. But I think like it takes a minute to get to know how to best use Cat and understand his vices and his virtues. And I think Tibbs knows that. For better or worse, he has a feel of that, and I think that's part of the reason why like Cat had a really good year last season for the Knicks. And my experience, always a lot of different coaches, a lot of different people coming through the Wolves. I've said this many times on here before, but like I felt like they always come in with one view of what Cat is,
the best,
and then it's like and it's always a couple degrees different,
right.
And it's really important to calibrate effectively around that. I don't know, maybe Mike Brown will nail that. I always think there's a little bit of a lag time to maximize Cat, and this team to win a championship either needs to maximize Cat, win now, or trade Cat and get somebody even better who can help them win a championship later in the 2020s. Didn't love having them on my list, and not having Boston on there, and I can like picture us texting 3 years from now, and the Celtics have won one, and they're the favorites to like win in 29. We're like, what was I thinking here?
And I'll be like, I had them on my list at 0.2.
Yeah. Right.
I'm a genius. Yeah.
They're just, it's not a lot there in Boston,
other
than those guys, and a big question mark next to Tatum, who was awesome last year.
They literally just have awesome. It's just Brown, Tatum, White, and Garza as the core. That's it.
Might not get him an extension.
Yeah.
All right. We did it. I'm not sure if that order made perfect sense, but I think this was like a, for me, it was a fun exercise kind of built off of that idea of Oklahoma City really kind of owning it. I think it helped me kind of understand how good of a position I think Denver is in now. And then it kind of
I'm with you.
hits thick in the middle.
It does. And it is just that interesting thing of like, okay, this team has a better chance to win it this year, but what does it mean in the long terms? You know, like I think you're probably right about it. Like Houston has so much that they can roll out a different iteration of their roster that we already know still has this base. And be better 2 years from now, where Cleveland is taking the shot now. But I don't think, if they're not the favorite now, what does that even mean?
It's the East thing,
it's
man.
that kind of
tricky.
balance. Yeah,
it's
right. Because if you get to the finals, you've got a shot, you know. And then, like we said, it always depends on the team you're facing. Like, you know, what if you get to Denver made it, but in the same thing as last year, it's like Aaron Gordon got hurt in Game 7 of the West Finals, so you're not actually facing Denver,
right.
You know, like that kind of thing happens all the time. So, but it was a fun thing of like knowing the Spurs have no chance this year, but being like, I'm pretty sure they're going to get one. You know, like whatever.
In others, my others, I left point 2 for that. I had the Clippers, Boston, put Dallas and Atlanta kind of in there too. Atlanta more from the West thing or the East thing, and Dallas, if Flag is, you know,
I
superstar.
thought about Dallas. I was just like, I just think 2029 is gonna be too early for Cooper Flag, maybe to be the best player on a championship team, but we'll see. You know,
the Clippers. I almost got the Clippers in there
because of because of where the cap's gonna unload for them, and they can kind of
a little bit now and a little bit later, maybe sort of thing. Like I don't know.
I am intrigued by them. I'm intrigued by the Clippers in that you go, oh, they're all too old. It's like, but if you're going to be old, don't you want 11 old guys and not 8? You know, like that's kind of my thought. And now certainly these are guys who maybe aren't the best equipped to be like, oh, I'm old and I haven't played in 2 months. Now I'm going to come in and be good. You know, but there's something about strength in numbers, especially if you are older.
Right.
You know, or it's like, okay, we don't have to put too much wear on anybody. We can roll out a competent basketball team. I don't like them at all in the West this year, but yeah, they can unload. I just whenever it's like, oh, they can clear their cap in a couple of years or whatever. It's like, but start with nothing, you know? Like that to me is a little bit of a
it's Zubats.
Right.
Like they would need to go get 2 guys, and we've just witnessed that story. Like you did it, you got Paul George and Kawhi, didn't work, you know.
Right.
So, but I don't know. I threw them on there with the LA tie there too.
Yeah, my others were the Knicks, and then I did put Dallas as well. But I just was like, I think it's a little too early. I don't see this team as currently constructed and like Flag year 2 actually contending in the West, and then it becomes his team eventually, and it'll take a little time on that.
I still don't believe in Dallas, just like in general.
Not this year. And then after this, like their weirdest thing is like this year is for these other guys and where they're at in their careers and their age. It should be this year. But then the Kyrie thing, to me, just kind of puts it all to nothing. Unless he comes back somehow in March and by mid-April is like, oh wow, he looks like himself, and they're the 7 and they're the worst 7 you ever want to play. Like I guess maybe, but it's a very small percentage. And then the year later, it's like, okay, but now all of these guys are a year older. Like, you know, so that's where it's hard for me to see timeline wise of this working out. Eventually, I think a championship contender for them is just Flag at the front years from now.
I also think it's totally fair for us to be like, well, let's see Cooper Flag in the NBA for a bit. You know, is this a good player or is this a great player, like potential wise here? And I mean, I think most people are on great player, but you know, there's different levels to that. Okay, we're going long. I did want to, you wrote about, or you did a interview with Mike Conley out at the 3M Open. What was that like? And I have a couple notes from the Q&A, but what was the 3M Open like?
Yeah, it's always fun. It's always the hottest week of the summer. Like you can mark that down. Like if you want to be like, when is the year when we should play in water stuff or whatever? Like look up the 3M Open. It's gonna be 95 degrees. Promise you. But yeah, Mike goes out and he's like a big part in it every year. Tuesday he does like community stuff where they have a bunch of kids out, and he's always out there signing autographs, doing like little like hitting balls in a simulator, whatever, saying hi to a bunch of people. And then Wednesday he plays in this pro-am. And I didn't watch Mike in it last year. I watched him in it this year. Like he's pretty good at golf. Like he's the only like legitimate golfer on the whole team. Cat used to be obviously not there anymore. Like there's nobody else who actually like golfs.
Does anybody else golf?
No, he said no. I asked him. I was like, I know, like he's like, no, nobody else does anything else besides like the like going to like the facilities and hitting the drives or whatever. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like the weirdest thing ever is like he hits lefty and then he puts righty, which I've never seen anybody do. And I was like, why do you do that? And he's like, I'm a goat. And I was basically like, I don't want to explain this to you. Yeah, no, yeah, he's. I mean, the first hole I watched him do like on Wednesday morning, he birdied it, just like birdied a par 4, and I was like, oh, nice. And I had some other holes where I was like, okay, so you're not great, you're not like the best. Like, you know, there's 4 rough shots here, but some nice shots along the way. You can tell he does it. And for him, the biggest thing was like, apparently last year he was horrible, like really horrible at the pro-am, and it was like. Could barely golf at that point, just like he couldn't do anything basketball stuff either. So I think as much
that's what was interesting from the interview. It was like, and I hadn't forgot that Mike was hurt all summer last summer, but you know, whatever. My mind has just been more on like summer league, and there's been so much Rob Dillingham, and I do think it's like important for all of us who are invested in this team to whatever degree to be thinking about what Mike Conley is on next season's team. When I think in many ways he's been written off, or there's just been you've applied depreciation to what he was. The case for that is strong. He fell off last year. He's 38, gonna be 38 now. Like you should factor in some depreciation, but a counterbalance to that would be the idea that maybe you can remember more specifically of like last summer he couldn't work out because of his wrist, right? That's what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
And this summer he's healthy. Like that should make somewhat of a difference, at least in the idea that the beginning of the season won't be as rough as it was at the beginning of last season.
Yeah, and not only that, like when it starts rough and you're that age, like there's more of a ramp up time. And then it's like, did you ever really get to your peak? You know, like maybe, but maybe not. Maybe you're always like, well, no, I feel like how I'd feel in October, where I usually feel something different in December or whatever. Yeah, I just think that all matters, and being able to put in a off season of work matters for everybody, no matter what your age is.
Sure.
You know, of like you can get to work on what you wanted to work on. You know, you didn't get to improve anything, you didn't get to like address anything. So yeah,
lose your rhythm that way.
Like he wasn't like dribbling a basketball. You know, so like that all matters a lot. And where this one, he was like, you know, they play the game, they lose in OKC. The next morning, they're all there just for like exit interviews. Like, so they're all at the facility the next day, but it's to like talk to people. And then the day after that, he's in there at 7 a.m. You know, like working out. Like he's like, I'm hitting the ground running here. And then of course, and you know, the story he tells in there is like, and there's Anthony Edwards at 7 a.m. and we're lifting next to each other, and we're like, you should be taking time off. You should be taking time off. But that's another thing where like, I think that was a funny anecdote, and like Ant's in there the day after exit interviews. So basically the first real day of the off season, and he's working out. And that to me is like, when you watch that video that he posted on YouTube of like him like cracking a bunch of jokes right after they lose to OKC, and we were right around it too, in the hallway of like, oh yeah, they beat our ass, you know, and he's laughing about it. I can't say nothing about it, and you can say it doesn't hurt him or whatever, but it's like the guy is back in there working out like 36 hours later. Like it matters to him, you know, like
yeah,
he might handle like the grief of it differently. Where Mike walked through the tunnel and was bawling, you know, like tears, because he knows, you know, who knows if this is my last real crack at it, whatever. And Ant's laughing, but 36 hours later, they're both in the same spot, you know, like working out. I think that matters, of like, they both understand what's required, and they'll both do it. Their emotions, like in the moment, might be different.
Well, Ant is doing a version of like masking there too.
Yeah.
You know, and because you don't want to cry, or you don't want to, you know, and if you're Anthony Edwards, you have all these cameras and stuff on him. I think you're right into point at the behavior of the work that's coming afterwards. And I don't know. I mean, when I was a summer league, I talked about this in the last episode. Like everybody I talked to there was just like gassing Ant up in the summer. It's kind of like, you know, there's training camps going on right now, and you like see like a football player, like, oh man, you just see like a highlight from training camp. You're like, all right, move him up my fantasy rankings because he had a sick catch in some video that some reporter caught there. Like, I feel like that stuff is typically what we're fed and what other people are fed of. Like, of course, nobody's telling us like, yeah, you know, player isn't working out. We're never hearing that.
Yeah. I mean, literally, do you remember like the summer they got Rudy? Like, how much crap we were fed about D'Lo in the summer he was having, and how happy he was and how he was working so hard. Like, It was like, oh my God, he's in great spirits.
Right.
Like, oh my God, he's here working out. He's blah blah blah. And it's like then rolled out. I was like, oh, it's still same player. Okay, like, but it is a little different, I think, with Ant. I would say when you say that
too, man, he looked thin. Like in a good way, like leaned out.
Yeah, maybe understanding like the conditioning aspect of the whole thing. Never saying he's in bad condition, but like more is required of him. Not on like the cover of Men's Fitness, but Men's Health magazine. But I think the only time I ever saw him like dejected after a playoff series was in Denver when they lost in the first round, and obviously there was like the chair push or whatever.
I saw him smash his phone in the locker room.
In the post-game press conference, he just sat and like basically like quit over whatever, and it was like because that was the second straight year he'd lost in the first round, and I think he's always had this vision of like, yep, okay, I lost in the first round. Now this next year I'll take another step, and then he didn't, and he was like dejected about that. So I think when he lost to Dallas, it was like, well, we got to the West Finals, like pretty big steps, and then this last year lost in the same manner in the same way. And I think in his head, he's like, why didn't we move forward? Like I'm supposed to be moving forward and the exact same thing happens. So that I think motivates him. I think it motivated him for sure coming out of that Denver series, lost in 5 games, and the whole team, and he played a huge part in it with his defensive presence and everything. And I think maybe we can see another bump here because he looks at those results and goes, that's not what was supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be moving forward, not having the exact same thing happen again. I must not be doing enough.
Which I think is great. I think it also puts pressure on this season then. If it's the moving up the ladder of like, we already did this, moving up the ladder is going to the finals, or at least being more competitive in the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, we'll see how that all works out, but it's encouraging to get the anecdotes that we're getting about it. And yeah, I think for both, I think Conley too, like the Conley part matters. We're going long here, Jace. Just for everyone, this is on the Pioneer Press. You guys it's just a Q&A between Jace and Mike about some of what he shared there too. I also like literally laughed out loud when you asked him about what the best part of his game is, and he said short game. I'm like, of course. I
was like, oh, and he's like,
that's up at twincities.com, Pioneer Press. I don't know, you got anything else?
That's all.
And
then heading into a dead zone. We're ready for it.
I know it's about that time. I hope y'all listening enjoyed my weird little number activity here. I hope it was acceptable for a July 28th podcast. Again, I would recommend going to read the Jace Mike piece in the Pioneer Press. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm seeing you do a pod. It's gonna be a while with the dead period. I appreciate you coming on.
If you have any more random ideas, I'm always down. I might not understand them, but I will participate in them.
Okay. It's getting thin. It's getting thin right now. I'm sure I will. I'm sure it's sometime in August. I will bug. Maybe we'll just like rank our fantasy football PPR wide receivers or something like that. He's Jace Frederick.
Comparing them to
Jace Frederick. Player comps. You guys can follow Jace on Twitter at Jace Frederick. You can read him in the Pioneer Press, and we'll be back to talk with him soon. Later this week, we are Kyle and I on Thursday are going to do a mailbag. So I'll put out a call on Twitter for that. But if you want to reply, or you can send me a DM or email or whatever with questions for a mailbag, that'll be the next episode that I do with Kyle later in the week to kind of put a bow on this post Summer League offseason piece of it. And then we'll, as Jace said, we'll move into the dead period. So that's coming up on Thursday. Until then, he's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.